Welcome back to another week for the School of Nock. We're getting in some of the final stages here of this series, and as we continue to polish minor details of our shot, I want to continue to work on small little details that are going to have big improvements throughout the rest of this season as you continue to work on them. Now this week, what I want to do is something that I refer to as checking in, or another way to think of it is understanding and really starting to focus on where you're at on the back wall of your cam. So as you draw that bow back and you get to full draw, there's little variances that you can have on that wall that's going to really determine how easy or how difficult your shot is, even when your form and your technique is correct. For those of you shooting a silverback release, this is going to be a huge week for you because this release is based on how hard you're pulling on your back wall. So the consistency of how it feels with this release in relation to how easy or how difficult your shot goes off is really going to be decided on how much pressure you have on that wall as you let off your safety and go through that pulling motion through your shot. Now, even if you don't have a tension-based release like the silverback, you're still going to find that this has big importance on your grouping, because one of the most common mistakes people make is when you're really light on that back wall and you start to possibly creep forward as that shot happens, even if you don't go far enough to where you feel like the bow's taking that string from you, you can also be in what we refer to as the valley of the cam. And the valley is that little bitty position between where the bow is hard and then it really gets easy at the end, and where it's at a complete stop. So from the breakover point where it's getting easy to when it stops, that is essentially what we refer to as the valley. So you can be very dynamic and super hard on that wall as you let off your safety, or you can be essentially on the very front edge of the valley where you're almost closer to the bow going forward than the bow being against the back wall. So what I want you to do is I want you to check in as you're coming or as you're getting to full draw. So you're going to go through all the same steps that we talked about in a shot routine: stance, grip, shoulder, anchor, peep. And as you're doing that, I want you to pull just a little bit harder on that wall and kind of see where you're at. Are you against it, or are you kind of in that valley? I want you to check in to the back wall, and you're going to do that using your back shoulder blade muscles, which we refer to as the rhomboid muscles. And I like to visualize what my cable is doing as it's touching that stop on your cam. I want it to be touching the cable. I want to be checked in on the wall, but I don't want to be pulling with all of the force that I have, because what you want to do is you want to have about 70% of your load against the back wall of that cam, so that as you let off your safety, you're able to continue with that last 30% to make that shot fire. Now, the better you get at this, the more consistent your release is going to feel, but also the more consistent your groups are going to be as well. For those of you who have pulled too hard on the wall to begin with, you might notice that if you're shooting a silverback, sometimes you let off the safety and it's already wanting to fire. So you've already reached that 100% max. Also, if you're someone that maybe pulls against that wall, but then as you're coming into your peep, you kind of let some of that pressure off, and maybe you're only starting at about 50%, then you have a lot of movement to get that shot to go off. So learning this back wall and checking in to see Where am I at against that back solid wall of my cam? Do I feel like I'm too far? Do I feel like I'm about ready to go forward? Learning that is going to really help in your improvement. And the easiest way to do it is to take a couple times where you go through your steps, you draw back, you get to your anchor, and you just pull a little bit harder, just like this, on your back wall. And you'll feel what that cable and cam is doing. You'll feel those little bumps. So here I'm about ready to go forward, right? Here I'm nice and solid against the wall. And so I'm checking in and finding where is that position to where I'm just right. So as I let off that safety, I'm able to pull through and get this shot to fire a little bit more consistently. Now, if you're shooting an index finger release, the same is going to be true. Make sure you have that good tension so that then you can wrap your index finger around that release and then focus on the target and just continue to pull that elbow back to get that release to fire. If you're shooting a hinge release, same thing's true. Making sure that you've checked in. This is something that as you fatigue and the front shoulder likes to start to creep up, it's something that you're going to start to notice, because even though you feel like you're at full draw, if you check in and you realize, whoa, I have a long way to go before I actually hit that stop, then you're going to realize that that shoulder's creeping and you're not really on the wall the way that you thought you were. So go through all your steps, stance, grip, shoulder, anchor, checking in, peep, letting off the safety, pulling through that shot and finishing. As you can see, there was much less effort right then as if I hadn't checked in against that wall. So try to focus on letting off that safety when you're at about 70% so that you're only able to use minimizing movements to get that last 30% to get your shot to fire.